So I went searching for the name Courtney and I kept getting Kourtne Kardashian, which genuinely made me feel nauseous. You see, I was looking for a missing person by the name of Kortne Stouffer. Now, Kortne Stouffer is who I want to talk about today because she has been missing since 2012. It's an open case, it's mysterious, it's unsettling, and because Kourtney's family has no closure, this is a call to action to help find Kortne Stouffer. $100,000 reward to bring her home and give her family peace. This is a highly requested case by one of my Crime Light loved ones here. I'd like to thank you so much for not giving up on Courtney, her family, and bringing this to my attention so we can talk about it here on the channel today. Before we dive in, I'm Chelsea J. Welcome to Crime Light. I can be found on Spotify if you're looking for a nice podcast to cruise through your day. I'm now on social media for some reason. That's right. Instagram, Facebook. I post a little bit about life coaching, especially through the holiday traumas. If you have that toxic family member, your crazy ex, the mother-in-law, your wild uncle, whatever it may be, whatever you're going through. I put little motivational things as well as some personal posts about me. I don't know, whatever you want to see, it's on there. I'll leave the links down below so you can come hang out with me, my little small but mighty channel. Please don't forget to hit the like button. You did it? Rad. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be seeing you on the other side so we can talk about Kortne Stouffer.
This is my time, my day, my hour. This is my time, my day, my hour. This is my time, my day, my hour. This is my...
So Courtney was a 21-year-old who grew up on a farm with her family outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, even though her parents had divorced, this didn't stop Courtney from making the most out of her life.
No matter how much time passes, I'll never forget the sound of her laugh. She was just a really wonderful soul, and I just miss her a lot. I miss her every day.
As a child, she was just always bright, a flower, inquisitive, always want to be right there in the center of things.
She was just a beautiful person. I can still hear her laugh and see her smile. She was just loud, funny, crazy person, but she was awesome.
I love her spirit personally. I know divorce can be a really tough gig when you're younger, but Courtney just kind of got herself out into the world and she's like, YOLO, I'm living. She was set on life discovery. What am I doing with my life, right? She doesn't know. So she starts wearing many different hats. Reminds me of my young self, to be completely honest with you, like holding a few different jobs, making as many friends as possible, that kind of thing. She becomes a dog groomer. She starts following her mother's footsteps at working at a beauty salon, and also she is working for her father's company. That's actually really impressive for 21 years old, you guys. Like, I've done it. Being the jack of all trades, just trying to figure yourself out. Courtney was said to be real tight with everyone too. Her dad, her moms, and her siblings. She was also a very outgoing young woman. She was loud, proud, and aiming to be discovered and noticed. Courtney had been living with her boyfriend in an apartment in downtown Palmyra. Her boyfriend by the name of Brad was actually on house arrest and probation for driving under the influence. And on the night of July 28th in 2012, around 9 p.m., they were having a party at their place when the police were called to their house. Police found 7 people inside, Courtney being the only person that was actually over 21 years of age. 2 subjects were cited for underage drinking, and then they were released. Courtney was the only person remaining in the apartment when the police and probation left. And because Brad had been on probation prior to the police visit, this was considered a violation. And so Brad was taken into custody by adult probation for probation violation. That's a lot of saying probation in one sentence, almost too much for one day. 10:07 p.m., Courtney receives text messages from friends Cody Pruitt and Milton Rodriguez in an invitation to join them and one additional couple at the gas station bar in Hummelstown. Courtney left her car at the gas station bar and rode with others to Harrisburg. About 1:50 a.m., the wee hours of a new day, it's July 29th now in 2012, Courtney engages in a verbal altercation with the girlfriend of Arvard Brown at the hardware bar in Harrisburg. Now, what I read was Courtney was fighting with Arvard Brown and his girlfriend that night because Courtney had suspected Arvard of breaking in. Someone had stolen substances and or some money out of the apartment. So check this out. Arvard Brown. Okay, it's July of 2012 right now in our story. In October of 2012, a few months after this night, this early morning, Arvard Brown, alongside 2 other men, receive a sentence of 5 to 10 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation for a burglary, a robbery, theft, and related charges. Story goes with this Arvard guy. Around midnight on October 10th, 2012, a victim and her 9-year-old son were sleeping inside their home in Grantville. When they awoke to the sound of a dog barking, there were 4 masked men standing in the home. 2 of them were said to have firearms. One of the men with a firearm held the victims in their bed while the home was ransacked. After they left the home, the victims summoned the police. Now that can be like a whole other story. Point being here, Arvard, he's nuts. Furthermore, Cody Pruitt and Arvard Brown actually knew each other at the time of Courtney's disappearance. So, yeah. So she's getting into it with Arvard and his girlfriend in this bar. It's a disturbance, so security intervenes and they ask her to leave, and for a brief time, she leaves by herself, which then separates her from others. Cody Pruitt and Milton Rodriguez, Courtney, and that other couple, they do end up finding each other and they end up returning to the car they all came in. Now, Cody ends up following her home. Cody and Courtney dropped off Milton and the other couple at 2 different residences before Cody drove Courtney back to her vehicle. He did so, and then he followed Courtney back to her residence in a separate vehicle. It should be noted that Courtney's father suggests that people knew Cody had a crush on Courtney. And it's not a crime, but he is heading home with her and, she's been drinking. Okay, so her and Cody end up back at her apartment a little after 3 a.m. And on July 29th, she gets in contact with her neighbors. A lady named Janice, a man named Rick, and an additional guy by the name of Todd. And Courtney kind of felt like Todd, who was a single guy who didn't quite care for Courtney as his neighbor, that he had it out for Courtney. What I read was it had to do with her wild streak. When she had guests over or gatherings, it was more like a party. And so the neighbors didn't like it. This night in particular, she had been pretty confrontational, as we can see. First the couple at the bar, Arvard and his girlfriend, and now with the neighbors. It was assumed that the neighbors knew about Courtney's boyfriend and the probation, and so it was said that they called because they could see there was underage drinking, it was loud, it was disruptive, and it's disturbing the peace. So when Courtney runs into her neighbors again, she flies off the handle. She's thinking that these are the people that called, and it's upsetting her. She is scared that her boyfriend, whom she was said to love very much and she was very close to, she's scared this guy may not be coming home anytime soon. Probation is not a joke. Around 3:12 a.m., the police are called by one of her neighbors concerning Courtney starting issues and making threats toward him in particular. While on the line, reports that Courtney went into her apartment and that some guy was with her and that he was also being disruptive. And by that, we're referencing Cody Pruitt. 3:15 a.m. Police arrive at the residence. It's just unhinged drama. Apparently, everyone had been drinking. Courtney reported that the neighbors came out and they began to yell at her while she was walking her dog. The neighbors reported, however, that it was actually Courtney that was being disruptive and loud and unruly. Todd, that guy, the neighbor that she didn't really care for, and he obviously didn't care for her, he reports that Courtney actually assaulted assaulted him. Says that he kicked him in his leg. Now, to be frank with you, I don't know why the police didn't just take her in right then and there. To be very honest with you, had they done that, it probably would have saved her life, and she obviously did strike someone, so I don't know why the police just let them all off with a warning and told everyone to go back inside. But that's what they did. It was a warning. About 4:11 a.m., that neighbor Todd contacts police again, and he reports that Courtney is now screaming through the walls and stomping on the floor. She's slamming doors and she's making threats to him and to the other neighbors. 4:31 a.m., police go back to the residence with backup from 2 nearby jurisdictions. Police are said to have attempted to make contact at the door and they were unsuccessful with a response. 4:36 a.m., as there was no response from within the residence and without grounds to pursue the matter further, police cleared from the residence. 7:30 a.m., the neighbor guy Todd, he shows up at the police station and he's pissed, okay? He's been up like all night, been a lot of drama. He's really kind of had it out for her to him. And so he decides enough is enough. The boundary is drawn. He is pressing charges because Courtney had assaulted him. Courtney had kicked him in the leg a few hours prior. So for him, enough was enough. At 7:56 a.m., July 29th, 2012, Cody had slept over, and when he went to leave that morning from Courtney's residence, he assumed Courtney to be resting in another room. Now, Cody supposedly had been driving his friend Milton's car, so he was said to have gone back to Milton's residence, returning Milton's borrowed car, and then he was driven to his own residence. But before the return of Milton's car, he had texted Courtney and he said, hey, what happened to you? And then after returning Milton's car at 12:36 and then again at 1:58, he reaches back out to Courtney without a successful response. Now, besides Milton, his alibi was surveillance that caught him after he left Courtney's residence at a convenience store buying a few items. When I say his alibi, it means he needed one because Courtney was actually nowhere to be found the morning of July 29th, 2012. The authorities revealed that they found no evidence of foul play at Courtney's apartment. The neighbors and the friends, they were questioned regarding the night of her disappearance. Search warrants were executed for the neighbors' houses. They found nothing linking to the disappearance of Courtney. Milton Rodriguez was also questioned as he was in the car with Cody and Courtney before he got dropped off at his place at 2 a.m. That car that Milton, Cody, and Courtney and that other couple that they were, riding in, that got searched. They didn't find anything. Their homes were searched. Nothing. So on July 29th, 2012, it was after Courtney no-showed for her family plans they had made the very next day at a local fair, something that they had always done and that she had absolutely always shown up for. This is when Courtney's family knew, something is wrong. Unfortunately, a few years would go by. In 2014, there had been a possible tip that Courtney's body had been dumped in a local lake, but again, nothing came of it. Eventually, the family hired a private detective in 2015 in hopes of digging up new leads, but that didn't change anything. Courtney's loved ones still hold out hope that their questions regarding their sister, their daughter's disappearance will eventually be answered. The family holds an annual float in Swatara Creek in Pennsylvania as part of celebrating Courtney's life every single year.
Some inner tubes, a hot July day, and a mission to remember Kortne Stouffer.
This is just kind of one of my favorite days of the year because we get to celebrate her and we get to keep her name and memory out there.
They run a Facebook page in her remembrance, and I'm going to leave that link down below, which sends regular updates with Courtney's pictures. The authorities have maintained that they are looking at persons of interest and concurred that there was a possibility of foul play since her whereabouts still have not been discerned. You guys know who sees more than anyone? Dogs. I swear, if dogs could talk, you guys, I'm always hearing about beloved dogs that were left behind when the owner vanishes or the owner goes missing or something happens to its owner. So here's where we're at. There is an outstanding offer of $100,000 for finding Courtney. You guys, that's a lot of money. There is no price tag on bringing your child home. It's priceless. You can tell the family are really hurt. You know, I've watched the family talk on these interviews. They're very well-rounded people. And I would also like to think that Courtney is a very nice young woman. I'm going to be 100% with you right now. You got a very nice Caucasian, young, beautiful female. I mean, look at those eyes, right? She is your American beauty. 21 years old, she's loud, and she's extroverted. So people see this as a really young, beautiful girl. So people are noticing this really young, beautiful American girl, but it's getting noticed in the wrong way. As an example, I'm not gonna go stand in Compton and start causing a scene. Hell, I'm not even gonna do that on 24th Street on the West Coast here, and everyone in my hometown knows why. Now, with where I'm heading with this conversation, I get it. You might be thinking, well, Chelsea, are you starting to judge the victim's choices now? Shh. I'm not judging. Let me talk. Courtney's family seemed to think that she was not quite herself the early morning she vanished and the night before. They said, you know, she seemed like she was just unhinged. She was angry from the incident with her boyfriend, and oh, she was this nice girl, and you know, she was making some bad choices that night. And you know what? It's good to stand up for yourself, but there really is a time and a place to do it. That night, she was all up on everyone with an attitude. And I wasn't there, but I was reading real life stories from people who kind of know this area. 2nd Street in HBG is a hotbed for alcohol-induced violence. With bars lining the street, the people stumbling over, madness is bound to ensue. I personally have seen the ugly reality of the Harrisburg bar scene. And this person says, you know, hey, I had to testify for a grand jury after witnessing a fatal stabbing outside of a bar on 2nd Street. So we know that the bar scene where she came from really wasn't that great. We now know the choice of people she chose to engage with wasn't that great. We know that her attitude wasn't that great. So I guess maybe it was an act of defiance overnight, little alcohol, some bad juju happening within the residence. But here's the deal. If she has people in her life on probation and going to jail on a violation, and then a confrontation with a convict in a bar for breaking into someone's home, I mean, this guy that she confronted with his girlfriend in the bar, he was masked, armed, and threatening a mother and a child, okay? This part here to me matters a lot because there's questions just here alone. Did Courtney do what most people would have done? Did she report this incident to authorities, or was Courtney so caught up in that lifestyle with her boyfriend and these friends that she was pulling the thug card and living the street life and silencing herself for her boyfriend's sake and just sort of knew that, you know, hey, this is the gig. The streets are like this. Why this potentially plays into her disappearance is because it actually matters a lot. For example, I saw a lot on the streets as a kid, and this kind of stuff happened a lot in at least 2 years out of the entire amount of time I spent on the streets with my substance abuser mother. And if you had somebody that was making some bad choices on the streets, you didn't snitch back then. If you knew the wrong people, usually those bad people, they had a street name, and you kind of just kept your distance or you did your dirty business with the person. So that was then. I got to see what it was like to be silenced, run around these people, know the street names, live the thug life, and keep silent until somebody gets caught, right? But today, I am not on the streets. I have a family, and I don't roll with these people. And if someone broke into my home today in my life, I would be reporting that to the authorities straight up. Like, I wouldn't be silenced. I wouldn't know them by their street name anymore. I have no affiliation with these people. There's just no reason to not turn it in and protect my home and my family. I think this says a lot depending on her choice in knowing that these people were doing some really bad things. If she wasn't reporting these things or having these conversations with her boyfriend, if she was going silent and loving him and he was making some bad choices and he knows the wrong people, right? Well, it all matters. You get caught up in the wrong thing with the wrong people, you're going to be in some big trouble on the streets. I want to show you something right now.
There's two things in life that are so important. Number one is, I always say this, and I try to mentor a lot of young people. I go into, prisons and juvenile halls and spoke at many men's ministries. And I told them, You are who you hang out with in this life. If you hang with the wrong crowd, you're going to be the wrong type of person, and they will influence you. I'm on the street. Obviously, I was influenced, and that's the person who I was. And I'm not blaming the others. I'm just saying we're all in the same boat in that regard. And secondly is accountability is everything in life. Who you are accountable to is going to dictate the path that you serve in your life. On the street, accountable to my oath, my God, my boss. I was a criminal. So when I come out now, I'm accountable to God first, accountable to my wife and children not to screw up, so I end up back.
So that is a prime example of a little bit on what I'm talking about. Like, you don't really want to be influencing yourself or getting caught up with the wrong crowd. It's serious. Now, the mom and dad of Courtney thought that the neighbor Todd was being weird when they showed up to her apartment. They end up describing Todd as being a bit quiet but nosy and not really contributing to helping the parents with answers. Well, to be realistic, that's an awkward situation for a neighbor to be in. Courtney really wasn't that nice to Todd. And they had their differences, and now she's missing, and she was kicking your leg the same day that she vanished. It's a weird concept to grasp. Ultimately, here's what I think. I don't feel the neighbors were involved. I'm sure it was a shock to them, honestly, to learn that Courtney was missing. I don't feel that because Todd had his opinions and differences with her means that he murdered her. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that if he had done something to her, well, that would be really weird to go straight to the police and bring them in on the situation, because that's exactly what they would have to do. They'd have to get in touch with her and him, and they'd have to go through a whole legal process to press those charges. So I would assume if you committed a crime, the police are the last people you want to bring in. Now, some people think that it was Cody Pruitt. The only drawback of that was a private investigator and her family was hired. They do sound like smart people, and I would like to think that if Cody Pruitt was cleared by the police and a private investigator, that he's cleared. Now, Cody Pruitt also has social media, and it does not appear that Cody seems to be running or hiding from anything. I really didn't feel any energy or see any red flags from his social media. In fact, he actually had a picture still up from days when he used to hang out with Courtney. He does not seem like he's trying to suppress information. And in leaving the apartment the next morning without searching for her, I could see a lot of people doing that, especially if you're tired, maybe hungover, and there's been a lot of drama. Also the thing is, he's a man, she's a woman. If he really was showing up to be the kind of friend that seems like he was trying to be, then it is appropriate for him to leave. And it's good to know that maybe he did think she was in another room for hopes that, nothing happened between them. A lot of people thought that seemed like Cody was just bailing. Oh, that was so weird. Well, not necessarily. Maybe, as a guy, you just wanted to get away from her, the drama, the night. He had things to do. I get it. Now, if I'm to play devil's advocate here, after the third show from police, remember the third call? It was alleged that there was stomps and screaming and, doors slamming in the apartment. Some people tend to think that this was Cody and he had something to do with it. And that maybe the alibi of him being at the convenience store was planned. And also, furthermore, maybe it was planned that, he goes and touches base with Milton so he could talk to Milton about it or whatever. But then he still has to bypass the police investigation and a private detective. Is Cody Pruitt really smart enough to pull that off? You also have to consider the fact that there is no evidence or foul play. He has been searched up and down, cars, place, her place, everything. Her keys, purse, and belongings also were not gone. Just her. Like a bubble. Like you would just blow the bubble and poof, it pops, it's gone. And the dog was home too. So here's my thing. When it comes to just her, Courtney, it's actually frustrating how many possibilities there are with this case. When she was alone, kicked out of the bar when security told her to leave. When she was walking, did she meet someone? And did she just verbally say, I'll meet you later at, 5 a.m.? I mean, it's so hard to know. There's so many different avenues of possibility. Here's what I do know. You have to pick who you trust very carefully. Who you allow in your home. It reminds me of the Idaho 4. It took a while for people to home in on Brian Kohberger. He himself left a lot of signs, but before that, that house that those 4 people were in were said to have heavy traffic because they held a lot of parties and a lot of people were coming in. It really made it hard on investigators, you know? Similar situation with those girls posting all over social media and tagging themselves where they're actually at in the moment of. This house had a lot of traffic in it, okay? So you have to watch who you're trusting, the influences that your lover has, the party guests that you're inviting over, where you're walking alone, who you're choosing to confront, and the time to do that. That's all we can get from it until we bring her home. It's not a matter of her not wanting to be found. I know in my heart Courtney wants to be found, but where is she? What do you guys think happened to Courtney? Please share this video. She is a missing person and her family deserves peace. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Keep Courtney and her family in your thoughts and prayers. It's the holidays and gosh, what a tough time. Thank you guys again. I will be seeing you next week for another case. Crime Light out.
But I didn't know